I'm Jive and Johnny Etheridge with you. Breakfast with the Blues on KRVM. The great guitarist and vocalist Johnny Burgin is on his way to Eugene. I caught up with him by telephone at his home in New Orleans. Johnny, I want to tell you something. I had been playing your latest album, No Border Blues, rather heavily here on Breakfast with the Blues. But I also looked back in the library for older things to play from time to time, and I remembered one of my favorite albums from 8 or 9 years ago by the Rockin' Johnny Band, and I pull that out to play something from it, and I look at the small print, and I realize, excuse me for not being quicker on this, I realized for the first time that the Rockin' Johnny Band was also you. It says Johnny Burgin right there in the small.
Oh, my God.
When did Rockin' Johnny become just plain old Johnny Burgin?
That is really funny. About 3 years ago, I decided to drop the rockin'. I just didn't want to explain to everybody, oh, I'm Rockin' Johnny, but I don't play rock blues. That was just putting me in a category I didn't want to be in, because the blues is rockin', but I don't play rock blues. So I decided Rockin' Johnny has had his day, and it's time to just be myself.
So now our listeners have been alerted to that fact. When they see a CD that's been around a while by the Rockin' Johnny Band, that is Johnny Burgin. Your most recent CDs have been on the Delmark label, and the very most recent one was No Border Blues. Tell me about that album.
Sure. I've been going to Japan often for a long time, and I was going with my blues partner, Stephanie Tice, and she said, you got to make a record with these guys. And she went back to Delmark and got them excited about it, and we did it. We cut all of that in one day in Osaka, except for one track was done in Chicago, because there's a lot of really good Japanese blues musicians who live in Chicago. And in fact, speaking of Rockin' Johnny and the old Rockin' Johnny Band, I had a Japanese bassist on all those records, Sho Komiya. He was one of the greatest bassists I've ever played with, and he was on the Jimmy Burns record we did and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, this is the first American compilation of the underground Japanese blues scene. I felt like these musicians really came to the blues with such a pure attitude and with so much love and with so much enthusiasm. And over the generations, because there's been several generations of Japanese blues players now, they've become really good. And I just felt like they needed to be heard, and we should sort of make the blues tent bigger.
When you refer to the Japanese blues scene as the Japanese underground blues scene, by calling it underground, does that imply that it's simply not as well known as it should be, or that there is some aspect of the blues business in Japan that forces them underground?
It's just a very small network of fans and fanatics in these tiny little clubs that are like smaller than your garage, It's just a very informal network. I mean, there's no Japanese Blues Society. There's no Japanese Blues Awards. It's just this very informal network of people who do it for the love. There's nobody to play it on the radio. There's nothing like that. It's just powered by its own steam.
You and I actually have something in common, although very remotely and tangentially. In your college days, you worked at a college radio station.
That was a great thing.
Tell me, were you playing blues on the radio in those days?
Oh, absolutely. I sure was. I started in the rock format, and I was playing too much blues, and they put me in the jazz format, and then I was playing too much blues in the jazz format. Then I got a regular Sunday gig with Tail Dragger, and it was the same night as my radio show, so there was no contest whether I was going to go play with Tail Dragger. So that was the end of my radio career. But it was a WHPK DJ that introduced me to Tail Dragger and got me kind of started on the whole blues thing.
This is in Chicago in what year?
It was around like 1990 or so, 91. Well, I met this DJ at WHPK, and it turns out he had played with Jimmy Rogers. He played piano with Jimmy Rogers, and he played harmonica with Tail Dragger. And Tail Dragger would have people like Eddie Taylor in the band or Hubert Stumlin, and he was amazed that I knew who Eddie Taylor was, and I was amazed that he had played with Eddie Taylor. This guy's name was Dave Waldman, and Dave took me out there to meet Tail Dragger, and I sat in, and when I sat in, it was a complete disaster because, of course, I was not nearly good enough, and I didn't know what I was doing. And it was kind of a wake-up call to me that I needed to really learn the guitar in a much different way and really, study certain records and really sort of immerse myself in it. And that was kind of the beginning of my journey.
You did an album with Paul DeLay some years ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that record has really helped me. I mean, even in very recent years, I'll be in a club and we're about to play, and they're playing that record at the club. All the harmonica players know that record worldwide, and they know Paul because Paul was so good. And that was pure luck. I was playing at Buddy Guy's Legends with Jimmy Burns, the singer. It was me and Sho Komiya and Kenny Smith who were on that record. And Paul just happened to be there because he was playing at Buddy Guy's the next day, and he got it down a day early. And he came up to me and said, I didn't know him. I had seen his records in a record store, but I'd never met him, And he said, man, you guys are great. I'm going to come back here and make a record with you guys. And and like a month later, he did. That was just really lucky. And we would back him up when he came out to the Midwest. And it was really fun. He's a really special person, and I do miss him.
You were born in Mississippi, went to college in Chicago, started playing in the Chicago clubs with Tail Dragger. You mentioned to me you're in New Orleans at the moment, and I understand that you've made your home there at one time or another, maybe even now. Is that right?
I've been here for the last year or so. I'm also really enjoying playing music here, and we'll see what the future holds.
Am I correct, or did I just make this up, that at some point or another you were living in Portland, Oregon?
I did. I was there for a few years, but I was never home. It was more of like a legal address because I was playing on the road like 250 nights a year. I was always gone. I needed a GPS just to find the post office.
You took several years off, more than just a couple, to put the music business aside for a while to raise your kid.
I did. I have a daughter. She just graduated from high school, and she's doing really great. And I took some time off and, got benefits and went to work every day for a good 8 years just to be around during that time. But I can't leave again. Like, I feel like everyone forgave me. They let me come back. They let me pick up where I left off, but if you leave again, that might not be good.
Hey, you are on your way to Mac's Restaurant and Nightclub here in Eugene. Tell me what we can expect to hear at Mac's.
Well, I've got Eddie Kobeck on drums, and, I know Eddie from Chicago days because he was playing with Pinetop Perkins. We've done a lot of shows with Pinetop Perkins, like in the Midwest, and that was a great thing. And Eddie lives in Olympia now. We have Bill Shreve on bass, dad of Hank Shreve and a real good musician. And Joel Astley is on this tour with me, a harmonica player from Seattle who was instrumental in putting all this together, and he's won a lot of the Best of the Blues awards from the Washington Blues Association. People really enjoy what he does, so that's the band. And we're going to play the blues. You guys have really been in my corner. I so appreciate KRVM. When I took that break, the DJs, they were still there when I came back. I mean, I did a record right away. Now it's the time just to let people know I was around, and everyone really welcomed me back. And the blues fans and the blues DJs are just so loyal. They're like the loyalest fans in the world. We consider it an honor to be able to play it on the radio and to have that chance. At KRVM, we're doing it 7 mornings a week, so that's rather remarkable, I think. It really is. It's a big deal, and it makes a difference. It's a privilege to travel around and play for the fans is a real privilege, and there's some great blues fans in the Northwest. This will be my first time in Eugene, so definitely come out to the show and say hi. Johnny Burgin will be appearing at Mac's Restaurant and Nightclub on Thursday, August 5th. There's information online at maxnightclub.com.